Hello, good morning. I'm going to cover the for loops. And as I said earlier, we use the for loop usually to perform a particular code or action for a number of times. So, for instance, if you have 2 raised to the power 5, that means you are multiplying 2 by itself 5 times. So, the number of times the action is going to be performed is defined and it is finite. Okay, but then you use the while loop when you want to perform a particular action until a certain condition is met. Okay, so let us take a look at how to use a for loop in particular for this video. There'll be another video on the while loop. So with a for loop, the syntax is simple. So you have let's say we want to print, let me zoom in. So let's say we want to print hello 10 times onto the computer screen. So we know the number of times we want to do the printing of hello, okay, onto the screen. We already know that. And since we know the number of times, then the for loop will be our what? Our best bet. You can still use the while loop to perform this action, but it's more favorable to use what? The for loop. Okay. But if you want to use the while loop, then you have to initiate a certain counter, and the counter will be counting then until you get to 10 before you stop counting. Okay, so continue from where we ended. So where I stopped. So the syntax is simple. So we want to print hello onto the screen 10 times. So the syntax for the for loop is one, you start with the word for. Then two, you put in a variable, an iterative variable. That's the technical name. So a variable that is going to be used later on. Then three, you state the word in. So for, then you put in your own variable, then you state the word in, then you place an iterable here. Now, when we say an iterable, it's any kind of data type that you can pick the elements in them one after the other. For example, so examples are strings. Okay, so if you have a string like let's say mouse, you can see that mouse. They are items, the M and the UOUSE are characters. You can pick them one after the other. Another example is a list. So you can have a list of fruits, mangoes, oranges, pineapples. So it's an iterable. It contains more than one character and has a set of characters within it or whatever it is. Then you can also have range. I've already done a tutorial on the range function where you can generate a range of values given this range function. Okay, so you cannot use integers because integers are not iterable. Even though you have the number 14, the 1 is not different, it's not separate from the 4. The 1 and the 4 are together as 14, and 14 is one element. It's not a separate value. It's not like, oh, there's 1 and there's 4. That's what we see, but in reality, it's 14. Example, pi is pi. Pi is not like 3 with a dot 1. It's a certain value, and that value is more or less like um, it's a whole on itself. You can't pick the elements in there. So you can't use an integer here. You can't use a float here as an iterable. You can't use I've not tried boolean, but you certainly can't use the boolean as an iterable, but I'll check for that. Then once you are done writing this, you end with a semicolon, you give your indentation, 4 spaces or a tab. So you can use the space bar, 4 spaces, or you can use your tab key. Then you state your code, the action you want to perform. In this case, the action we want to perform is what? The hello, printing what? Hello on the screen 10 times. Okay, printing hello on the screen. Okay, so let me write a simple code for that. So as I said earlier, we say for and we put in a variable. So let me say my variable is I. Then I state my iterable. So I want to do it for range from what? 1 to 11, and you know the range will end just before um the range will end just before 11, which is 10. So it will start from 1 and end on 10. And I close it with a semicolon. Remember, the for and the in are constants. They never change. That is the original syntax. The the iterative variable, for my case, I used I. For your case, it could be X, it could be name, it could be numbers, it could be anything. And for the value I'm going to iterate over, which is the range from 1 to 10. I wrote 1 to 11, but the actual value is 1 to 10. So when I come to the next line, I press my tab key to give an indentation. Then I say print hello. Okay, print hello. So when we run this code, it prints hello to the screen 10 times. Now let us see if it is actually 10 times. So I put my I put it into the print function. So what you realize is that when you run the code, you see 1, hello, 2, hello, 3, hello, until it gets to 10. So this I, for every loop, the I goes to take the first value in the range function. And the range function, in reality, the data is something like this: 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So for the first loop, the value of I will be equal to 1. And we say 1 and hello, we print them. So we get this. Then once this action is done, it goes back to the loop. And now the value of I is now 2. And we print 2, hello. Once this action is done, I goes back to the loop and takes the next value 3 and 4 and prints it, 5 and prints hello, 6 and prints hello, 7 and prints hello, 8 and prints hello, 9 and prints hello, then 10 and prints hello. Then when I goes back into the I trouble and sees that all the values are exhausted, then it gets out of the loop. So the for loop repeats a particular action for a number of times. We could have replaced the range function with a list and it would have worked. So let's replace it with a list. Okay, so I in this list. Okay, don't forget your semicolon. Okay, then print I in this list. So when I run it, I still get the same value because I goes to pick the first value, which is 1, and that's the printing. I goes to pick the second value, which is 2, and that's the printing. Third value, 3, and that's the printing. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that is how the for loop works. I could have had a string. Let me see. So let me replace this with a string. So let me say. So now it's a string. But this time around, I'm not separating it with spaces. I'm just putting all the values together. Okay, then quickly okay. So if you realize we have a long string with, and remember, each character is independent of the other. Okay, so this string, each character is independent of the other. So when we run the code, what we get is I goes to pick the first letter, which is 1, the first character, which is 1, and print 1 hello, goes to pick 2. But remember, these numbers are not numbers, they're actually strings, unless you do what typecasting to convert them from one data type to the other. So 2, and that's the printing. Goes all the way to 9, and that's the printing. Now when it gets to 10, since it's a string, it doesn't see it as 10, rather sees it as what? 1 and 0. So it goes on to print what? 1 hello and 0 hello. And that is how the for loop works. So the for loop simply runs over a loop, runs over an I trouble until it exhausts all the items in the I trouble. Okay, but then let me try it through. and let's see what happens. Ah, nothing happens. So you can't use what? Boolean. Boolean is not allowed. So let me just give you a comment. Um, so NB, okay, boo, boo, int, and floats are not I trouble, are not I troubles. Okay, so those that are I troubles are what? Strings, lists, then the range. Okay, so this is what I have taught you so far. We have other data types like dictionaries, tuples, sets, and all those ones. But then, based on the data types I've taught you, we are looking at strings, list, and range. Then Boolean, integers, and floats can't be used as I troubles. So you can put in any value here, and it has to work. Any value here. So let's put in mouse, as I said earlier. So when I run this code, I goes to pick the M and prints M hello, and you see it here. I goes to pick O, and we get what? O hello. I goes to pick S, and we get what? S hello, then E, then hello. So it keeps on doing this until the end. Now you'll get to see the use more interesting when we get to the next phase. I hope you understand the syntax. This is just to understand the syntax of the for loop. Now when I have another print function, let's say mistakenly I say print thank you. So at the end of the loop, I want to just say thank you. But then I place the thank you, the print, at the same indentation level as under the for loop. When I run this code, every time it prints the hello, it says thank you. But if you want the thank you at the end of everything, you have to let the code exit the indentation for the for loop. So I put it on backspace. So this loop runs, and when this loop is done, then exits to continue with this. So you see hello, 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 and the last one says thank you because the loop is done. But then if it's like this, you get hello at every stage. So every printing comes with another thank you. Okay. So that being said, we move on to an example here with, let me run this. At least let me have a nice output. Okay. So we move on to an example. So we want to write we have an example. We have the word called hippopotamus. Okay. So in this example, we are to find, let me remove this from here. It's very destructive. Okay. So in this example, we are to find all the um so our task is find all the vowels in the word hippopotamus. So we are looking for all the vowels in the word hippopotamus. So how do we deal with this? So we can, and we know hippopotamus has a fixed length, has a definite length, and we can loop over it where our I or our I trouble variable, which in this case I use I, will go into hippopotamus and pick the characters one after the other. Then we check whether they are vowels or not. So we write a for loop for I in the word. Okay. First we can say print I, and when we run this, we get, for every round we print I is HIPPOO, and on and on and on. But this time around, we are not interested in printing everything. We're interested in printing only the vowels. So we can put a conditional statement. If I is in the set of what? A, E, I, O, U. So if the I character, because I goes in there to pick the first age. So if I, whatever character it is within this list of A, E, I, O, U, then you print I. Okay. So here I've shown you how to use the in, okay, as a logical operator. Okay. So you print the I. Now when we run this code, what we see is that I, O, O, A, U is being printed. H is not in the vowel sound, so it doesn't get printed. I is in this set, sorry, it's in this list, so it gets printed. P isn't here, it doesn't get printed. P isn't here, so O, P. So all those vowel sounds within this list are being printed. On the flip side, what if you want to print for consonants? There is no need writing for all consonants. So you say, if I in this list, you just add a not to them. Not means opposite. So when we run this, we get the HPPPTMU. So not means if this is true, if this whole thing is true, make it false. Okay. So when H in this list, no, which is false. Not means make it true, then it prints H. Is I in this list true? Not means make it false. And since it's false, nothing gets printed. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. So in that way, we're able to print what? The consonants. And if we remove the not, we're able to print what? The vowels. Okay, so these are some of the uses of logical operators within the if statement. So, but then I want you to also take note of this. In this case, we have the I printed vertically. What if we want to print it horizontally? So to print them horizontally, you put a comma, then you say end. That means at the end of every print statement, just end it with a space. By default, the computer ends it with what? A backslash n, meaning that when you print the first one, the next one should go on the next line. End it with the next line and end this one with the next line, with the next line, and so on and so forth. But we are saying end it with just a space. So when you print I, end it with a space. So the space will be beside I, and the next one gets printed, and the next one gets printed, and it goes horizontally. So when we print this, we see this as our output. And after printing the I, it left a space. It ended the printing of I with a space. And for the next printing, it continued over here, and so on and so forth. Okay. So that being said, I think we've treated the for loop. Now, what if you want to we are not interested in the number of times a vowel sound is occurring in the word hippopotamus. You want to see all the vowel sounds in the hippopotamus word, ignoring the number of times they occur. So we only need I, O, A, U, not I, O, O, A, U. Okay. So if we want to do something like that, you can. So instead of printing this, let's find a way of but then we can save it as a string. Yes, we can save it as a string. So we can quickly say, now if the vowel sound belongs to A, E, I, O, O, U, now let's start with a string, a dummy string. So let's say, let me call it vowels, and I'm starting with what? An empty string. Okay. So starting with an empty string, now if this is inside a vowel and and vowels and vowels, I'm coming, and vowels dot count. So this vowel is a string, okay? This vowel is a string, and we say we want to count I. So when we take H and we count the number of H in this vowel sound, if we count it and it is 0, then it means there is no vowel sound. Sorry, then it means H has not been recorded already. But then here we are also focusing on what? Vowel sounds, not H, not consonant H. So we're focusing on vowel sound. So for the first loop, what happens is that um, if we pick I, which is a vowel sound, and we check for I in this variable name called vowels by counting the number of I's in the vowels, and it's equal to 0, then we print I, else we leave I. So when I run this, A O O A U, okay, so it didn't work as planned. It didn't work as planned. It didn't work as planned. So let's see why it didn't work as planned. Let me bring it here. Okay. Now let me put an if into an if. So let me run this. Oh, so let me run this. I O O A U. It's not working as expected. So let's see. Oh, I know why it's not working. Undo, undo. So once we discover it's not in the vowel, we have to add it to the vowel. So we say vowels is a string plus equal to I. Okay, so we add the vowels, we add the character to the vowel, so we update the vowel sound. Okay, now remember this vowel variable has already been created with the initial stage. For the first stage, the vowel is an empty string. The computer goes to pick H. If H is in this list and it is not in this list, so it doesn't proceed, the computer goes to pick I. Now, is I in this list? Yes, it's in this list. Now, if the vowels, that's this, dot counts the number of I's in there, and the number of I's in there is 0 because there is nothing in there. Now, add that I you've picked to these vowels. So from the second instance, what we get is something like this with an I. Okay. Now add it to it and print I. Okay. Then this I goes back to pick P, and P is not a vowel. Another P is not a vowel. O is a vowel. Now vowels dot count O, but then the only character in there is I. So when we counted the number of O, we got 0. Then we added, now vowels plus equal to I, and this I is the holding the O character. So we added the O to it. So for the second instance, we are going to get I O, something like this. And we go back to pick P, and it's not a vowel sound. We go to pick O, and O is a vowel sound. But then when we count O in these vowels, it is equal to 1 because already there's an O, which is, so making it equal to 1, making this statement false. So it jumps it and goes back to what? I in word and picks the T and A and stuff. So it goes on and on. So it prints what? So it updates to IOA. Then the last one will be IOAU. Okay, so let's run this code and see. So IOAU, and we found a way to remove the repetition. So instead of having this if statement and this if statement, I can put both of them together with an end. Okay, so I can cut this part, Control X, and put it here, and just want you to see, and all is done. But then the indentation, I have to shift it by 1. Okay, so I'm saying that if I is a vowel sound, if the word from the letter from the hippopotamus is a vowel sound, and that vowel sound, when you count it in this variable vowels, if it is not 0, if it is 0, then add that vowel sound to this vowel and now print it. So this is the meaning of the code. So if one of them is false, let's say you pick H. H is not a vowel sound. Automatically, it doesn't qualify to come to this stage. Now, if you pick I is a vowel sound, and when you count I in this empty string, it's 0. So then this action proceeds. Then we go on and on and on, and we see we are going to get the same output. Now, to print all of them on a horizontal line, we end it with what? A space, and we get IOAU. So this brings us to the end of our video on the for loop. Okay, so I just added this extra example just to make you guys think about a lot of possibilities. You can put an if statement in a for loop, and you can put any of them into each other. Okay, so have a nice day. See you. Bye.